Hey guys, what's going on? Happy spring. Today, well, at least in my opinion, is the first day of spring, even though it was said that the first day of spring was yesterday. I'm doing it today. I'm going to be doing it, or I am doing, a fawn girl, a fawn centaur, for this piece. This was the first idea, or that I had to do, the first thought. Then I was like, no, I should do a magical girl, because I have a magical girl who deals with plants, and then I changed my mind on that, because I couldn't find a pose and a composition that I liked. So I was like, okay, I'll do a fawn centaur, and then I didn't know what to actually do with her, because I had sketched a couple of things in my sketchbook, but they weren't necessarily concepts. They were pose ideas, but I was just like, yeah, but she just looks pretty. The one idea I did have, I struggled how to conceptually do it, because it looked cool and the idea was cool, but I didn't know how to execute the idea that I had. So I was just like, you know what, I'll try to find something else. I sort of came up with this idea on the fly. The idea here is that this particular dough girl is sort of like a demigoddess. You don't see her during most of the winter months. You see her most like at the end of the winter months. So you would see her in like February, mid-March. And the idea is that anyone, that includes people and other animals and other mythical creatures, generally, the first flowers you see is like a blessing from her, and that spring is arriving soon. The concept behind that thought is a fairly old one. They're not necessarily for what I used it for, but I know there are other ideas that use that sort of same thought process. Like if you see certain things, that means something is nearby. Or I think there's one that's like, I know it was used as a Harry Potter reference, but I've heard it elsewhere too. Like if you have wind chimes, it usually lets you know that a spirit is nearby, that sort of thing. Especially if there's no wind, you know, that kind of idea. So I went with that. Um, I slowly descended into madness. Typically, when I do digital art, I try to keep to a simple, soft cell shading type of shadow idea, mostly because it's faster for me, and I can just sort of get on with the process. That didn't happen this time at all. What happened was I was doing something near her face, and it just looks so flat, because I didn't do really thick lines, which I didn't want to do for this. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to add some highlights to her face. That should liven it up a little bit. That should make it less flat. And I descended right into madness, and I did what I call a half paint. And you know what, it came out better than I expected. Despite the fact that I didn't mean to really paint, it came out great, and I'm happy that I sort of went with it, despite the fact that that was not the intention. I don't. I didn't really add a light source here. The one light source is dealing with the flowers, because I wanted this to be sort of magical, but I didn't really add a light source, so I know my shadows are probably all over the place. I just tried to keep it as simple as possible and pretend that there was a light source. Usually if I do add one, I try to stick to it as close as possible, but as you can see, here I go. I'm like, okay, let's pretend the light is coming from over to the left somewhere. I'm not quite sure how left, but left. that was literally it. So I shaded half her body, which, by the way, when drawing black and brown girls, I have learned that it is good to shade them with purple. Now, I didn't like pick a purple, you know, carefully. I just sort of chose a purple at random, which is fine if you're not, really thinking about it, but sometimes you want to think about it. But it worked out here. I think it's because of her skin tone and the color of her body. I think the purple worked out just fine. Here's my slow descent into madness, because I started these highlights and I was just like, well, now I can't, just do basic shading and call it a day. So I had to highlight the rest of it. I kind of wish I added some freckles to her, though. That would have looked really cute. But that's neither here nor there. If I do draw her again, which happens a lot, I draw a lot of characters and sometimes don't ever draw them again, or for at least months at a time. I'm working on that. But yeah, I just went for it. And because I went for it in the skin, I couldn't just sort of soft shade the rest of it like I would probably do normally if I was being lazy. Also, the reason you see this purple so vivid, what happens is, using a purple, sometimes I can't see it, especially on a skin tone this dark. So I just leave the shadow layer on normal before I switch it over to multiply, just to see where I'm putting my shadows. For especially, just mostly for darker skin tones, because otherwise I'd see them just fine, and it'd allow me to change the tones if necessary. So if I needed to change the tones in one area, they would have to be changed in other areas. Also, the little bit of colors you see next to her right here, there, I don't have my color picker thing on the side. Well, the little box where you can leave swatches at, I don't have that set up. So I just needed a little spot to put those. Also, the technique I'm doing on the eyes here is actually a technique I learned, I think, like 3 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. I didn't really know how to color eyes when it came to digital art, and I found the tutorial online. I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere. I don't recall where I left it internet-wise for to share, but if I find it, I'll post it at some point. But yeah, I had the descent into madness with the hair too. I actually really enjoy doing hair digitally because I have a lot more freedom with it. But when I was doing the hair, I was like, I can't leave these lines, because not that the lines were black, but they didn't look right because I had sort of fell into this painterly style. I left them on the shirt, and I don't mind them on the shirt, but I couldn't leave them in the hair. Also, watching Kiara Studios leads you into a life of sin and flyaways, apparently. I've been watching her for probably the last, I want to say, like 6 months or so. And I know she's done flyaways for a long time, but I never thought to do them in any of my artworks for myself. So I can now say that I have learned several things from YouTube in terms of art, even if I'm applying them differently. This isn't the first time I've done them. The first time I did them was 2 or 3 days ago. I was doing a print test, and I did it digitally. I did a piece digitally, a sketch, and I printed it out. Usually it's the other way around for most artists. They do something traditionally, and then they scan it, and then they embellish it digitally. I did mine backwards on purpose. But I was like, well, I've never added flyaways to hair. Let's see, what the big difference is. Because it's one thing to watch an artist do it to their art, and that's just their thing. But it's another thing entirely to try it yourself and go, holy crap, this is a thing. This works. So, I absolutely enjoyed adding the flyaways traditionally, and I definitely lost my mind doing them here digitally. I added so many, but it gives the hair a certain life, and I'm glad that I sort of learned that. I've been learning from a lot of YouTubers lately, even sort of when they're not giving a tutorial. Like I said, Kiara Studios, well, Kiara, I should stop calling her Kiara Studios because that's not her name. You know, I've seen her do these flyaways and I'm just like, you know, never really thought to apply it to my art until 2 days ago. Also, here I am doing the flowers. I didn't do any specific flower. These are sort of like daisies, except for like the one red flower, which I think would be a poppy. But I just sort of freehanded them. I had a photo reference of some daisies on Pinterest, but I just, you know, sort of winged it there. Nothing, you know, crazy or out of the ordinary. I could have done a meadow of flowers, but I think I would have cried trying to do that. And I tried to make it as magical as possible. It kind of worked. I struggled a lot with this one, but I'm overall happy with the result. I think maybe in the future I would love to redo this, just to see how far I come with my digital painting, because it's been a long time since I've actually gone out of my way to paint something. I think the last time I kind of attempted it was 4 months ago. That's kind of bad, but I don't do it that frequently because it takes me a long time to do it. I require a minimum of 6+ hours to actually attempt to do this, just so I can get everything right, because if I don't get it right, I don't want it to be half done. And the minimum is 6. I know there are people who probably paint faster than that, but I'm not one of them. Oh man. And I'm trying to use my Photoshop more. I don't draw in Photoshop, and I don't understand people who do or how they do. It's not my thing. I've tried. For whatever reason, my pen pressure doesn't seem to work with the program. Despite having a Wacom, it just doesn't want to work. And that's fine by me. If it doesn't want to work, cool. I have other ways to use this, to use this program. So here I am in Photoshop. I do a lot of color correction here, changing the color balance and such, which is always fun to do. I haven't really done that since probably last January, though, to be quite honest. I was also lazy. I could have drawn clouds in Tool Sai. I really could have. But guess who didn't want to draw clouds today? It was kind of a sort of a later thought. I was just like, oh, some clouds would be nice in here, so it's not just play. But having cloud brushes, I know I got them off of DeviantArt, but I cannot remember the artist's name for them, unfortunately. But yeah, this was pretty much it. I had tested out a couple other things, but and I added a small gradient so I think it added a little something to the picture. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm going to apologize right now because there is apparently a small blue dot, and the image saved strangely. But yeah, that's why it has that weird border. But thanks you guys for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And if you liked the video, please share it. And I'll see you guys Friday. Bye.